Hey guys, welcome to the Sports Note for Sunday, October 2nd. I know I said with my live Cleveland Browns reaction just under an hour ago that I was actually going to record this at home, but I guess why not? Why not just do it now? We actually had a very entertaining weekend of college football, and now that the Week 5 rankings have come out, with the final game really kind of impacting it, ending with Florida's game against Eastern Kentucky, I think it was, or Eastern Washington, getting moved to today in the wake of Hurricane Ian. The polls are out, and we've got five teams from the Big 12 in the top 25, and this is the polls are now starting to kind of round back to where we're used to, where you're starting to see some of the power conferences separate themselves, and you don't have as many outliers from group of five schools. But the argument is, who's the best team in the Big 12? Is it Oklahoma State? Is it TCU? Is it Kansas, of all things? Kansas is 5-0, and they've just entered the rankings for the first time since 2009, coming in at 17. I'm going to make an argument here. What about the Kansas State Wildcats? Wildcats are 4-1. Wildcats are they're ranked 20th, so they moved up 5 spots from after a big win over Texas Tech, who's also a very good team. Even though Texas Tech is 3-2, Texas Tech did actually have 3 games already against top 25 teams and have won 2 of them. Kansas State had a huge upset over number 6 Oklahoma in Norman last week, 41-34, and then followed that up with a 37-28 win against that, again, a very good Texas Tech team this week. They are now going to be on the road in Ames to play Iowa State on Saturday, and then they've got a very tough stretch, predominantly through the rest of their season. They're going to be at TCU on October 22nd. They'll be home to Oklahoma State on October 29th. Then they'll host Texas on November 5th. Be at Baylor on November 12th, and then they're at West Virginia before finishing home in the Governor's Cup against Kansas, who again is now currently in the rankings. If Kansas is going to stay there, let's see. Whereas that Governor's Cup game could have a lot of ramifications about if one of those 2 teams could end up in the Big 12 championship game. Kansas State has got all the ability to do so. They've got a good defense, but the key to the Kansas State attack right now is their running game. Kansas State is averaging 267.2 yards on the ground, good enough for 4th best in the country through 5 weeks. And a big part of that is junior running back and 2021 unanimous All-American Deuce Vaughn. Vaughn has got 638 yards and 3 touchdowns on only 110 carries through 5 games, rattled off 180 yards against the Red Raiders yesterday, and is looking to be the best back by far in the country right now. He'll more than likely declare after this season, and I have no doubt in thinking that Deuce Vaughn, even though he's a little bit undersized by what certain teams might think, he's only 5'6", 176 pounds, but he's so elusive and he's got a lot of power in that small frame. It reminds you a lot of a former Kansas State running back, Deuce McAllister, and also Darren Sproles. I'm sorry, Deuce McAllister, I believe, was Tennessee. But again, very much Darren Sproles. Like, as a matter of fact, I think they might have even won the same number. But Vaughn is more than likely going to be an All-American this year if he stays healthy again. And you never really make the argument about drafting a running back in the first round of the draft. Vaughn's got all the talent to be able to do so. If he's got back-to-back All-American campaigns, He rushed for over 1,400 yards and 18 touchdowns last year. He's already at 600. He's close to 650 yards in 5 games right now. So he's easily going to end up, eclipsing the 1,000-yard plateau. Probably won't have as many touchdowns, you won't think. But the other aspect of what makes Kansas State so dangerous is their senior transfer quarterback from Nebraska, Adrian Martinez. Now Martinez has actually got his passing numbers are not jumping off the page. His running numbers are. Martinez is 654 yards passing, but he's got 469 yards rushing and actually ran for 171 himself yesterday. So two guys ran for over 340 yards combined for the Wildcats against a very good Texas Tech team. That was a game where the Kansas State ended up leading 13-0 after one. The defense absolutely collapsed in the last 5 minutes of the first half, let Texas Tech right back in it. It was a 13-10 game at the half. The Red Raiders tied the game just midway through the third quarter, and then they ended up flip-flopping some touchdowns in the second half of that third quarter, and then Kansas State just ended up taking over from there. It was they hung 17 on the Red Raiders, and then the Red Raiders scored a touchdown with about 2.5 to go to make it interesting. It was a 9-point game, and then really at that point it was just Kansas State recovering. It was Texas Tech, ironically enough, I think, if I can recall, recovering an onside kick and then not really being able to do much with it afterwards, and Kansas State just kind of running out the clock. The Wildcats are 2-0 in the Big 12. That's currently got them tied with Kansas atop the Big 12. Oklahoma State and TCU got conference wins this week. TCU actually ended up hanging 55 points on Oklahoma, knocking the Sooners completely out of the top 25. Oklahoma's gone from 6th to 16th to out over the course of the last 17 days. If you really start to think about it. And we could be starting to see a little bit of a shift in the Big 12, and how ironic would that be, considering you've got Texas and Oklahoma on their way out. Both of those two teams are 3-2, and both are Texas is 1-1. Oklahoma is 0-2 in the Big 12. Name the last time that happened. You'd have to. That's going to require a little bit of research that I just unfortunately right now don't have the time to be able to do. But with Oklahoma State is probably going to be an odds-on favorite to get to the Big 12 title game, but Kansas State and TCU make very, very viable arguments to join them. Kansas and that game coming up in 2 weeks between Kansas State and TCU is going to go a long way towards establishing who really could be the dominating force. Does Kansas State have enough with their running game to be able to get past teams like Oklahoma State and TCU coming up over the course of throughout the month of October? We certainly will see. But if yesterday, the way that they turned the game kind of on its edge and essentially flipped the field with both Martinez and Vaughn having 69-yard runs in the second half, setting up scores. As a matter of fact, the Wildcats had 2 drives in the second half that were just 2 play drives, and they both had 75-yard had those 69-yard runs a part of them. It's going to be very, very hard for somebody else to be able to catch up with the way that the Wildcats can move the ball in such a very, very short amount of time. The other aspect about Kansas State that nobody's really talking about, that yes, they did give up 28 points to Texas Tech, and also again gave up 13 points on 3 consecutive drives in a very quick fashion between the last 5 minutes of the second half and the first half of the third quarter, is Kansas State's defense. Now, Kansas State did open the season with a shutout against South Dakota. Only limited Missouri to 12. They allowed 17 to Tulane in their only loss. Gave up 34 to Oklahoma, but Oklahoma's going to get their points. And 28 yesterday against the Red Raiders, coming up against some very, very high-powered offenses here with TCU, Oklahoma State, and Texas, and Baylor to an extent. But Kansas State right now loves to get their hands on the ball. Kansas State has got 9 interceptions and actually just had their first 2 fumble recoveries of the year. So making their turnover ratio, they've got 11 takeaways, which actually puts them in the top 10 in the country. As a matter of fact, the 9 interceptions is 4th best in the country. Or I believe it's in a tie for 4th right now. So the ability of Kansas State to kind of get after the ball and force turnovers is a staple. Kansas State always had a very good defense under Bill Snyder. When Chris Kleiman took over for Snyder a couple of years ago, that was one of the staples they actually wanted to keep in place, was just really how hawking the defense could be to be able to take the ball away when necessary. And through 5 games to actually have 9 interceptions and 2 fumbles, they are well on their way. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment box below. And you can also hit me up on Twitter and Facebook at any time. And go check out my Cleveland Browns live reaction after their loss against Atlanta earlier this afternoon. Wise Guy Sports Show 1-year anniversary show coming up on October 15th. And I will actually be back with more Sports Note content a little later on this week. After putting out 4 videos in the last week, I think I actually kind of need to back off a little bit. But again, we will see you guys here probably in the next couple of days. Take care.